Okay, so look, as a creative person, tell me this. Have you ever felt like you were always in a hurry or like you never have enough time to do everything that you want to do on your schedule? You know, they say that everybody has the same 24 hours, but you and I both know that it feels like a lie a lot of times. And if you're like me, when you get in this state where you're just over busy, you know, you find yourself being too stressed out. You're snapping on people. You're going off on your family and your friends. You may feel overwhelmed. Maybe you feel hopeless. There's all this sort of nasty junk that comes with being too busy. And I want to let you know that you are not alone. So today I want to share my tips for creating more margin in your creative life and reclaiming your God-given joy and your peace so you can get back to living out your purpose and thriving in your creative journey without losing your mind in the process. All right, this is the GodFrame Show. Let's get into it.
Get up! Get crazy! Let loose! Set yourself free! Whoa! Get up! Set yourself free!
All right, welcome back to the GodFrame Show, the podcast where we share life stories and lessons to help you get unstuck and back to making the art that moves the world. I'm your host, GodFrame, and I am so excited for today's episode. Feeling good, you feel me? Feeling real good about today. Today is a topic that, I don't know, something that's very important in my heart, especially in my life right now. My wife and I talk about this often. We read a lot of articles about it. We listen to podcasts about it. Like, it seems like everybody and their mama is talking about it right now, or they should be. And that is creating more margin in your life, because life gets busy. Creativity is busy. Work is busy. Side hustles are busy. Family, friends, like there's all sorts of stuff that we're responsible for in this life. And if we're not careful, these things can, overwhelm us to the point of not wanting to do anything at all. And I don't think that's what God created us for. He created us to make a difference on this planet while we're here. So I want to tell you a quick story. My first real job, I guess, out of college, I worked at a large church in Chicago. And I was busy, like busy AF. I don't know if I can say that when I'm talking about working at a church, but we were busy AF, man. Like, it was, I won't say horrible. It was a big learning experience for me, but I think I experienced for the first time what it's like to take too many things on, too many projects, too many deliverables, too many responsibilities all at once for one person. Thankfully, that's when I learned to use a tool called iCal. I'd had productivity notebooks and journals and things. I was that little nerdy kid who carried around a planner when I was in like 5th or 6th grade. I don't know what I put in there, like dumb stuff, right? What was I going to do as a 6th grader? But I had never actually used a calendar. And so one of the leaders of the church, sat me down one day. He was like, hey, listen, you're like failing in a lot of areas, and you're not turning in work on time, and you're like missing meetings and stuff, and you're kind of all over the place. And I'll never forget, he sat me down and he was like, look, have you ever used a calendar? And I was like, kind of, in middle school, but it didn't really count. And he was like, look, here's iCal, here's a Google Calendar, whatever. And this is where you can like manage your time, right? Like budget for the time you have in any given day or month or year. And I went ham. Like, people still make fun of me to this day because I went off on that calendar. Like, I literally filled it to the brim with everything that I had to do. Like, I had brushing my teeth on there. I had every meal in there because I was like trying to do this meal prep, weight loss. I don't know, who knows what diet journey I was on at the time. But, I had all my meals in there, what I was going to eat, when I was going to eat it. I'm surprised I didn't put going to the bathroom in there. I literally filled this thing to the brim. And eventually I found that I was priding myself on staying busy. The calendar didn't necessarily make me less busy. It actually just showed me everything that I had going on. And I was like, oh, look, I'm busy. And it didn't make me say, oh, let me stop doing some of this stuff. It was more so, oh, great, I'm busy. Look at this. Here's proof. I'm actually doing things. I'm productive. I'm important. And it got to an unhealthy place, and to where, friends would invite me to go places. And my first excuse was, I'm too busy. Look at my calendar. Look at all these colors. It's like Tetris blocks, or if they needed help from me, I'd be too busy. And eventually, some of them stopped reaching out. Like, it became a norm. Like, nah, we wanted to invite you to the such and such, but we figured you'd be busy. And it showed me that I had become so busy that I wasn't making time for important relationships. And I wasn't making time for time with God, my prayer life and, reading my Bible and, the spiritual disciplines and things like that. And, physical fitness. Like there was a lot of things that just weren't making it onto my calendar. And so being that busy showed me that the real key to a full life of purpose and joy and fruitful relationships is not a stacked calendar. Instead, it's built by having enough margin and enough room for the people and the things that matter most. And so, like I said earlier, life can get busy. I'm sure if you're listening to this, you're probably multitasking right now. You might be at the gym, you might be on your commute to or from work, laying in the bed, cooking breakfast, like I don't know, but you're probably not just sitting down and watching or listening to this podcast because life is busy. We got obligations, we have jobs, we have responsibilities, businesses to run, ministry endeavors to be a part of, volunteering experiences, parenting, relationships, with our spouses and girlfriends, boyfriends. Like there's so much that we're able to put our hands on in this life. But I would argue that the empty space, that's where the real beauty is. You think about a piece of art or a piece of design, it's the white space that makes art and design more powerful. Yes, colors are great. Yes, shapes are great, abstract, and boom, bam, boom, like all this stuff in your face is awesome. But what makes it really special is when you go from lots of color to nothing. Or even in music, it's the silence between the notes. They used to tell us this in band, that it's the silence in between your notes that makes the music more dynamic, makes it more special. The pauses between when you're having a conversation with someone and you just stop for a breath, so they can actually understand what you're saying. It's the empty spaces in between the things that makes life more beautiful. And so I got a few tips today. If you're someone listening to this and you're like, man, GodFrame, this is me. Like, yo, I need more margin in my life. I need more empty space. I'm way too busy. My calendar is overpacked. I'm scheduling my dookies and everything. Like, yo, I got too much going on. I just want to share a few things that have helped me, things that I have learned and am learning for allowing more empty space in your life. So my first tip is decide what's most important in your life and schedule those things first. Decide what is most important in your life and put those things on your calendar. And so you got to have your non-negotiables, right? And these are going to be different for everybody. Let's say you're doing a business deal or whatever, like there's always, or even entering a relationship, there's always, one or two, maybe 3 or 5 things that just can't be negotiated. It's like, yeah, you want it for this rate, but no, we only go as low as this rate, right? So you've got to have your non-negotiables. For me, it's things like, my time with God, my prayer time, spending time worshiping, spending time with my Bible. That's a non-negotiable. Time with my family, that's a non-negotiable, right? Those things go on the calendar and they stick on the calendar. My health and wellness now is a priority. Getting in the gym, at least every other day, doing some sort of physical activity because I sit at a desk all day long. And then it kind of dwindles from there. But there are other things that are maybe not as important as the top, but they're still on the list, like time with my friends, having fun with my passions, my hobbies, all of this stuff. It might not necessarily be life or death, but these are the types of non-negotiables that have to be included in my schedule somewhere. Like if they're important for them to be in my mind and my heart, then they deserve a space on my calendar. And, I just named like 1, 2, 3, like 5 areas, 5 bullet points. And, it already sounds like a lot, right? Like it's like you just name those things like, well, what else are you going to do? Like that's it. But it's necessary to kind of, align yourself with what actually is most important, because otherwise you'll just kind of float through life, letting life happen to you, letting all these obligations come your way, and you don't have any guardrails or any non-negotiables to say, nah, I can't do this, this, and this, and this because I have this, right? Or I can't go out and do this event or this function or this whatever with you because I have a date night with my wife. And I think, not only do you have to identify what these non-negotiables are, you have to guard them. Like you have to literally guard and protect these non-negotiables because it's really easy to just let them get smashed and run over on your calendar. Like you may put, 10 a.m., I'm going to do X, Y, Z, but if someone calls you in the middle of the day, like, hey, can you, it's 9:59. Hey, can you help me with this, whatever thing? And you could say yes, but then now your 10 o'clock non-negotiable has just become negotiable. And you're showing yourself that it's really not that important to you. And so once you figure out, what's most important and you put those things, in your schedule, then you can add everything else, however you make money, like your job, your business, volunteer efforts, obligations for other people, projects for other people. Like that's when you can kind of start adding in all those other things. I heard a story about a professor, and I'm probably going to butcher it a little bit, but he was telling the story to his class. He had them guess how many items would fit in a jar or whatever. And he started with these large rocks. 3, maybe 4 rocks would fit in there until the jar was filled up. And then he moved on to like some golf balls and some smaller pebbles, and then eventually some sand. And, the sand kind of filled in all the other empty gaps. And, the lesson from that example was, you've got to have 2 or 3 things that are like these large rocks in your life that you absolutely have to place in your life. And you don't have room for many of them. Like you can't have 50 large rocks. You can only have 2 or 3. These are the non-negotiables, the big deal stuff. And then everything else, the smaller balls, the pebbles, the sand, these are things that, they're nice to do. They're nice to have, but you don't have to have them in your life. And you use that to fill in the gaps that are left after you fill in your large rocks. My second tip is to leave room for life to happen. Plans are great, but life be lifing out here. I don't care who you are. I don't care what you're responsible for in your life. Like, life is gonna happen. And so what I've learned, and I'm still learning, is, not to cram everything together on your calendar. For example, if I have meetings during the day, like instead of scheduling 10 meetings with people just back to back to back to back to back, I've learned to kind of leave some margin, leave some room in between those meetings. Because, sometimes a meeting will run late, or I might oversleep and, get my day started late, or I might have a flat tire on my way, somewhere running an errand, or maybe a project that I've got my hands on is going to take like an hour longer than I thought it would. And so what happens is these gaps allow you to be more realistic about what you can do in a day. And what happens, if you're not leaving this type of margin, you go from one calendar event to the next calendar event. And when the next one pops up and you're not ready for it, now suddenly your brain is sending you stress signals. And you're like, oh my God, I'm late. Like, oh, I'm supposed to be doing this. And then like, oh no. And then like your whole day is just smashed to pieces. And then you end the day pissed off, stressed out, worried because you didn't get everything done that you thought you could get done. And so in order to prevent that stress and to prevent that feeling that you're always behind, I just recommend leaving room for some unexpected opportunities. You think about Jesus. There's a lot of stories about him, healing people and doing all these miracles and, preaching and teaching and doing his thing. But if you examine some of these stories closely, you will see that a lot of the miracles we hear about were actually the result of interruptions in Jesus's day. Like he and his disciples may have been on the way, like he'd be like, yo, let's go over to the mountain. Let's go over here to this other town and do such and such and such and such. And then like along the way, someone would stop him. Hey, Jesus, my son is sick. Can you heal him? Jesus, I've got an issue in my body, or I'm blind. Like, can you have mercy on me? And he had enough margin, in his quote unquote iCal. He had enough margin in his schedule to say, you know what? Yeah, I'm on my way over here, but I've got enough room to stop and help and heal. And I think that's kind of the deeper meaning behind allowing margin in your life. How many opportunities might you be missing to help someone or to help yourself or even to rest, doggone it, just breathe a little bit because you're bouncing from thing to thing to thing to thing without breathing in between. I got one more tip for you, but before we get there, I want to take a quick commercial break and hear from our sponsors.
This podcast is brought to you by Lamar Haley Entertainment, helping global brands and creators leverage music, film and TV, and digital content to engage audiences on a human level. Discover more at lamarhaley.com.
Being a creator isn't easy. Whether you're juggling last-minute deadlines, working with difficult clients or team members, or you're just not feeling confident in the things you create, it's easy to feel overwhelmed. Frustrated? Like no one understands what you're going through? Well, here at Team GodFrame, we got you. That's why we created the GodFrame mailing list, a weekly-ish newsletter full of stories, tips, and inspiration to help you thrive on your creative journey so you can get back to making art that moves the world. Get that creative boost you've been waiting for from GodFrame straight to your inbox. Sign up now at godframe.com/mailing-list.
Got a question you want to get answered on the show? Or you just want to give a shout out? Now you can. With the Anchor platform, you can record a personalized voice message for a chance to be featured on an upcoming episode of The GodFrame Show. Leave a message now at godframe.com/podcast.
All right, welcome back. Again, today we are talking about adding margin to your life. You know, having a thriving creative life is about more than just getting a bunch of stuff done, but also about leaving white space in your calendar, empty space to just breathe and enjoy what you're doing and not be so frantic and stressed out. And so my third tip for today is you got to master the art of saying no. Master the art of saying no. One of the reasons that my calendar was so full and still is so full, I'm working on it, is because I hated saying no to people. I often say that I'm a recovering people pleaser. And I realized that I have a habit of saying yes to people when they ask me things because I want to be liked. I like people and I like people to like me. And so pridefully, I was afraid of telling people no because I thought that they wouldn't like me anymore or that I wouldn't be deserving of their love or, I wouldn't feel important in anyone's life. Because if I'm not out here being a superhero and like putting out all these fires and, saving the world, then what good am I? And so through a lot of prayer, a lot of thinking and praying and just like letting God heal that area of my life, I've come to realize that, the main person I got to please is God. And, I've already got his affection. So if I'm running around living my life in a way where I'm just trying to make everybody else happy and not worrying about my own health and sanity and breathing space and just like peace of mind, then I'm doing life wrong. I'm not doing this in a healthy way. And so I've learned to start saying no, not just to other people, but to some of my own ideas. I know you can relate to this as a creative person. Like our ideas come from any and everywhere at any given moment. You could be walking your dog and then suddenly you have this brilliant idea. Oh my God, this could change the world. You have this just life-changing idea. And if you're like me, you want to do that idea immediately. Like, oh, I gotta put this in place now. Stop everything. Matter of fact, don't stop everything. Keep everything else going. And I'm gonna do this idea. But I've learned lately, sometimes you got to say no to your own ideas or even not right now to some of your ideas. Your idea is still awesome. It's still great. It still could change your world, the world, your family's world, but it might not be for right now. You might have to take a look at what you've got going on your plate already and realize, you know what? I got a full plate. I got ribs. I got chicken, macaroni. Like I don't have any room for, extra broccoli salad. Can't fit it on there right now. Right? Like, be comfortable with saying no to yourself sometimes. Also, practice saying no to helping others personally. This one's tough for me because, I love helping people. Again, I love being there for people. But the reality is a lot of times when people come to you with fire drills, it's like, oh, can you help me with such and such? Like it's an emergency. A lot of times either it's not that big of an emergency or it may be an emergency for them, but it's not necessarily an emergency for you. And that's harsh and it's hard to say, but it's real life. Because at the end of the day, if you run around putting out everybody else's fires, but your house is burning down, like, what are you doing? Like, what good are you? Like, everybody else in your whole life is happy. They're satisfied. They got what they needed and wanted from you. Meanwhile, you go home and your family is falling apart or you're falling apart because you don't have anything left. Say no to helping others professionally, even. My wife and I kind of have this inside joke, when we go to events or things that are like not so dope, like if an event is boring or a host is boring, or if, I do a lot of, video work. So if I see like janky camera movement, like I have to like restrain myself like, oh, wait, we do not have to be responsible for making this event or this function a great event. Like this is not our event. We are not hosts here. We are not event planners for this particular function. We are not on the camera team. Like, just chill, embrace it, and let it suck. Okay? If they ask for your feedback afterwards, fine. Give them your feedback. But you don't have to help everyone professionally just because you do what you do. You know, I actually had to stop taking my camera to some family functions because, you know, even though I love vlogging and, you know, taking photos and doing that stuff for my personal brand and even for fun, you know, sometimes people would have the expectation that, like, oh, you know, we know he's going to show up. We know Terrence is going to show up with his camera. So, hey, since you're here, can you, like, do these group portraits for us? Or can you, you know, take some photos? Or can you just make a quick video for us? Mind you, no discussion of pay because, you know, it's like friends and family. But at the end of the day, it's, you know, I do this professionally. And so you're literally asking me to do this for free for you as if this is client work. And so I just had to stop bringing my camera to some places. Now, it doesn't mean that you're saying no always and forever. It's not, you know, you're cutting the world off and you're just going to be this jerk and never do anything for anybody. But what this means is that you're reserving your yeses for opportunities where you can actually have the most impact, the most enjoyment, and the most influence and income. Basically, it makes your yeses way more meaningful so I can actually give my full energy and time and attention to it. So if you struggle with this, like I do sometimes, I got a little template that you can steal. All right. You can literally write this down if you want, or I can put it in the show notes. You can get it afterward. But here it is. Next time someone comes to you and you're not sure how to tell them no, here's what you can say. Hey, thanks for asking me to do this. It sounds like a great project. By the way, this works either written or in person. Like, it doesn't matter. Thanks for asking me to do this. It sounds like a great project. Unfortunately, due to my current workload, I'm not able to help this time. But you know what? Hit me back in 3 months and I'd love to revisit it. Boom, easy, right? Like you gave him a little sugar, you know what I'm saying? It's not cold. It's not like, oh, get away from me, you jerk. I'm not helping you. It's, hey, this does sound like a really good opportunity, but you know what? I can't do it right now. I wouldn't be able to fully serve this opportunity with the fullest capacity and the fullest oomph and the fullest energy. And if they love you and respect you, they should be able to respect that decision. If you're getting a lot of pushback, like, oh, you know, they're basically bullying you and forcing you to help them, then you might need to reevaluate that person and their relationship in your life, or at least your proximity to that person in your life. Because at the end of the day, another thing, you know, my wife and I say is that, you know, we don't want to get to our goals or get to whatever our finish line looks like and be in shambles. We want to get there and still have breath, still have some strength, still be able to run some more races, not falling apart and feeling like we never want to run again. All right, so here's my challenge for you today. All right, I want you to take a look at how you're spending your time. Really assess and ask yourself, am I filling my life with stuff that really doesn't matter and neglecting the stuff that's most important? Or am I actually filling my calendar with things that are meaningful? And if you're not doing that, you know, start eliminating some stuff. You can start small, you know, cancel some obligations. Do you have to go to the event? Do you have to have lunch with this person as often as you do? Do you have to get on this phone call or this meeting? Maybe get out of some of your volunteer groups. Maybe start saying no, just practice, even when it feels uncomfortable. Just say no for the heck of it. Like, it doesn't matter what it is. Like, just get used to that muscle of saying no. And again, it's not to say no to everybody always. It's to create more opportunities for more meaningful yeses. Because living a full life isn't about a full calendar. It's about leaving margin and space for the people and the things that matter the most, including yourself. All right. Thank you so much for listening to this episode. I hope you got some value out of it. You've been listening to the GodFrame Show. You feel me? Season 1, we in this thing, baby. I'm your host, GodFrame, and I hope you have a phenomenal rest of the day or the week, life, month, whenever you're listening to this. And as always, I'll talk to you soon. Peace.
Get up!